the HarPodcast with Harpreet and Jagraj.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹਰ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਪੰਡੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਐਤਵਾਰ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਆ ਤੇ ਪਲੇਆਫ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅੱਜ ਰਾਊਂਡ 1 ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਕਜ਼ 7ਵੇਂ ਮੁਕਾਬਲੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 7ਵਾਂ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ 10ਵੇਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ 7ਵਾਂ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ 2 ਹੋਏ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਡੈਲਸ ਨੇ ਹਰਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਵੈਗਸ ਗੋਲਡਨ ਨਾਈਟਸ ਨੂੰ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਨਵਾਂ ਸਟੈਨਲੀ ਕੱਪ ਚੈਂਪੀਅਨ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ 2024 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਤੇ ਕੱਲ ਰਾਤੀ ਮੁੰਡਿਓ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੀ ਆ ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਬੋਸਟਨ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ 7ਵਾਂ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ। ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲ ਗੈਸਟ ਨੇ ਮਨਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਭੰਡਾਲ, ਜਗਰਾਜ ਲਾਲੀ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਨੇ। ਪ੍ਰੋਡਿਊਸਰ ਦੇ ਹੈਲਮ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਡਿਊਸਿੰਗ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੁਣੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਛੋਟੀ ਵੀ ਮਨਤਾਰ ਸਿੰਘ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਮੈਂਟਰੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਕੱਲ ਰਾਤੀ ਹਾਕੀ ਨਾਈਟ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕੀ ਹੋਇਆ?
ਕਮਾਲ ਦਾ ਮੈਚ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਲਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ। ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ, ਸਾਡਾ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਸਤਿਕਾਰਯੋਗ ਹਾਕੀ ਨਾਈਟ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਵਾਲਾ ਜਗਰਾਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਲਾਲੀ ਹੋਸਟਿੰਗ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ, ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨਾ producing ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ। So it was a good game last night, game 7, Bruins and Leafs, and man, if there's a franchise out there that's more cursed than the Vancouver Canucks and the Buffalo Sabres, it's got to be the Leafs. I thought they should have won that game last night. They honestly, Ilya Samsonov didn't have too difficult of a night. I thought both goals were pretty bad that went in on him, but most of the shots he faced were pretty easy ones. The one Lindholm goal in the third, that was probably the only shot the whole game the Bruins had net front traffic, and Samsonov couldn't see it. And but the Leafs, I thought they generated way more offense. Just my 2 cents. I thought Jeremy Swayman had to play outstanding, and the Bruins throughout the regular season have always been a very goaltending friendly defensive system. So whether it's Allmark on net, Swayman in net, the numbers have been virtually identical. I personally think Swayman's a bit of a better goaltender than Allmark, but still Allmark's a tremendous goaltender. But I digress. It was a wonderful game. Leafs absolutely snake bitten on offense. They only score 1 goal. That's now 14 games in a row in the playoffs. They failed to score over 3 goals, and 13 of those they haven't even scored 3. They've only scored 2. And Boston wins on a really, really wonderful heads-up play by Hampus Lindholm, who had a monster game, ties the game 1 minute 21 after William Nylander scores the game's first goal in the third period. And he dumps the puck in. The Sedins used to love doing this in Vancouver, the dump in on the fake icing, and Pasternak's the first one in, blows by Morgan Riley, and he scores. So Harp, you had some valid criticisms on the goal. You thought Samsonov was very conservative, and I agree. It's one of those ones where if it was any other goaltender, I'll be brutally honest, it probably is not in the back of the net. Sure, you can't blame the loss on Samsonov just based off pure numbers, but I personally didn't think he played that great.
Yeah, I did have some criticism there. I thought he was kind of no man's land. Either you got to go out and get it, or you got to be at least higher on your crease. I also watched the post game on Hockey Night in English, and I caught the part where Kelly Rudy was talking, and he blamed Samsonov too. He just he wasn't in the right position, and what Kelly said was he should have gone into the corner, within the trapezoid, and played the puck. I didn't even see that one. And then I saw a whole bunch of other stuff on TikTok today. It was like everyone was an analyst breaking down where every Leafs player was. First, I see one on Hampus Lindholm. They're like, hey, guys, they're cursed and controversial. Should have been icing. Okay. Puck is close enough. He follows through over the red.
Pasternak's still the first man in. That's
he
the
is.
thing,
So
right?
you negate that. They're just isoing where he shot the puck from, right?
Like, everyone's blaming Marner and Nylander, and I get it, but they're not the ones to blame. Like, Nylander's coasting, but that's not his man.
No.
He has to stay high in the slot. Marner, are you really going to chase a guy all the way to the goal line from center ice? Like, that's Morgan Riley. He gets flat-footed, completely gets blown by Pasternak. If there's one guy you can blame besides Samsonov, it's got to be Morgan Riley. Like, what are you doing? You're completely flat-footed, and Riley's a really good skater. He's a very quick guy, but that's on him.
Yeah, I totally agree, because he's the left defenseman
That's his
Pasta's the
corner.
yeah, Pasta's the right winger. So it's just like basic hockey. Who takes who, right? Center
Yeah,
takes center,
simple man to man.
and that's it. It's not like a demon that was pinching or something that Marner or Nylander could have taken. So when you show just a ISO on Marner, like
That's just cherry
gingerly
picking.
skating,
That's
that's
just
just
cherry picking for a narrative and an agenda. That's all that
that's
is.
right. That's right.
Right. You can blame Marner all you want for the whole series. He only scored 1 goal. Newsflash, a lot of these guys only scored 1 goal. William Nylander is probably the only guy that really showed up forward-wise. Matthews, I thought, played decent considering the circumstances. He was obviously battling an injury, illness, whatever it was. He still ended up almost a point a game. But Nylander, I mean, he's playing through migraines. That's tough. You know, he said he couldn't see out of his eyes properly. Still scored 3 goals in 4 games on Jeremy Swayman. That is commendable in my opinion.
You got to give it to the Leafs. They battled back. They're down 3-1 and you get to overtime. You got to take your chance there. It was I knew it was going to end in the first period. And then you look at the Pasternak goal too, where he just dekes and he didn't have too much space. He tucked it in. He maybe had about 6 inches to put it there.
Very
right?
few guys can make that play.
And sure, we can blame Samsonov. Like I do think he could have played it better, but Leafs battled back in the series, and everyone's talking about blowing the team up. That was that when they were down 3-1. There's still frustration, like within Leafs Nation. They're saying blow it up, and then there's obviously Sheldon Keefe's post game
Very interesting
quote.
comment.
I was just like, I was still in the car, and somebody read the quote out, and I was like, whoa. I was like, wait, did he just say that?
Yeah.
And then you find out on social media, and it's just like 200 messages, and 90% are like, this guy's nuts.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting to say, but just going back to, I think Leafs fans would have rather had their team got either swept or bounced in 5 versus another Game 7 loss, because they're stuck in this no man's land where they're not good enough to win in the first round, but they're not bad enough to get bounced easily. Like, they fight every single year. Every time they lose, it's always a Game 7. You know, in the Matthews Marner era, there's only one time they've lost in the first round that wasn't a Game 7. That was the first time they ever played in the playoffs. That's Washington in Game 6. Obviously, the Columbus one was in 5, but that was a best of 5 in the play-in round. That's still a winner-take-all game. They've lost every single one of them. Obviously, lost in 5 to Florida, but that was in the second round. And oddly enough, I thought they played better against Florida than they did against Tampa. If anything, Tampa shot themselves in the foot the whole series. But if you're management, this is the problem. You know, you look at it like this. Okay, we've been bounced every single year in the first round, but every single time we've been right there. So what do? You're stuck between this rock and a hard place where you're not good enough to get over the hump, but you're not bad enough to get annihilated in the first round. That's the problem. So you want management to take action. If you had just been bounced in 4 or 5 games, you're way more likely to see some drastic action from management. But the fact that it goes to overtime of Game 7, what do you do as management? Because your team's good enough, but they're also not good enough, if that makes sense.
You mentioned we're right there. I've heard that twice. I heard it from Tavares last night, post game. And
They've
I've
been
heard it
saying
from
that
Matthews.
for 8 years, Harp.
Matthew said it. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. We're right there. That's fine. You're right there. Last year you get past the first round. This year you're 1 goal away. But this team should be getting even past the second round. That's where these expectations were with this core and whatnot. You go back to one of the Canucks teams like Naslin, West Coast Express. They could never get past the second round. They should have. They put up huge numbers, had great regular seasons. It's the same thing with these Leafs, right? They've had the core for long enough. There's going to be changes coming for sure. And the biggest ones are probably personnel-wise on the ice. I think it's Marner. Shanahan probably going to go. I think he should be the one going before Keefe. What do you think?
Yeah, here's the thing. Kyle Dubas handcuffed this team when he left. He gave out no move clauses to pretty much everyone. You remember when Mike Gillis left Vancouver and Jim Benning, sure, he didn't do a great job, but he had to clean up Gillis's mess with all these no move clauses. So trading away Ryan Kessler, they got nothing. They got literally nothing out of that. It's going to be the same thing. If the Leafs try to trade Marner, he's got a full no move clause. Like, they're not going to have any leverage in any of these trades they make. And so, if anything, if you run back the same core, you got to strip Tavares of the captaincy. Something like that to just shake things up. Do I think Tavares is a bad captain? No. Do I think he's an excellent captain? No. I think he's fine. But in this NHL, fine is death. You know what I mean? Being mediocre, being just okay is death. You either want to be surging or you want to be the opposite. If you're right in the middle, that's the worst place to be. We saw it work with Winnipeg. Blake Wheeler, longtime captain, new coach comes in, strips him of the captaincy. Obviously, tons of, off ice stories, whatever. But it seemed to work. More guys bought in. There was more leadership by committee. I think with this Toronto team, this is Austin Matthews' team. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, I think he should be captain. But at the end of the day, if they run back the same team, I understand why. Brad Treliving is probably going to get fleeced in any trade he makes that involves one of the core four guys. Like, you're not going to get better trading away Marner. That's the problem. Like, you can address your defense, you can address your goaltending, but if I'm a team who's trading with you, and I know Mitch Marner only wants to go to my team, I'm not going to give you fair value. Like, did Anaheim give Vancouver fair value when they traded for Ron Kessler? Absolutely not. Ron Kessler was an elite two-way center, and they barely got anything. They got a replacement level defenseman back. They had a depth forward. That's pretty much all they got back. And Bonino only played 1 year there, and Spiza barely played in Vancouver at all. So with Toronto, that's the problem. I thought Kyle Dubas did a decent job in Toronto. Where he really screwed up was the contracts for these big four guys. And whatever, admittedly, it's his first GM job. Everyone makes mistakes. Outside of those contracts, the big four, I thought he did a pretty good job getting guys to contribute on cheap contracts in the bottom six. He was never able to get a goaltender, but there's plenty of teams that are in that same boat. But they're handcuffed. These guys have full no move clauses. They want to trade Tavares. They want to trade Marner. Good luck. Mitch Marner doesn't owe anything to this team. He can just say, nope, I'm not going anywhere. I'm coming back. He's a UFA next year, and he's going to make his bank. It's a terrible situation to be in. That's the problem. Like I said, you're not bad enough to just not make the playoffs or get swept, and the management takes action, but you're not good enough to get over the hump, right? And now with all these guys locked in, it's a very tough. I don't envy Brad Treliving's job at all. I think he's a decent GM. He's an experienced guy. He did the best he could with an impossible situation with Gaudreau and Tkachuk a few years ago. Sure, that trade hasn't worked out, but at the time, everyone was singing Treliving's praises that they got Huberdeau, Weegar, a first-round pick, and a prospect for a Tkachuk, right? So he's been in a position like this before. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like, everyone wants change. I get it. This team absolutely needs change, but be careful what you wish for.
They might not do anything because Marner and Tavares just have one more year apiece left. So, getting fleeced doesn't make any sense. Maybe they flip them at the deadline. Maybe they keep some cap, right?
Yeah.
They retain some salary, and there is some ways to work around it. But I think Marner's time is up. Like, he's been the whipping boy, and it's been too long. And this is kind of historical in Toronto too. Guys do well, but at the end of the day, when they don't deliver, somebody takes a rap for it, and they just get chased out of town.
Yeah, absolutely. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. I do feel bad for the fans. That is one cursed franchise. Bounces just don't go their way. In my opinion, I think Sabres fans have it the worst out of all the fans in the NHL. But at least the Leafs have a cup. But it's sad when they've won a Stanley Cup more recently than the last time they beat the Bruins in the playoffs.
Crazy. So we'll move along to another series that wrapped up earlier this week. That was the Oilers and the Kings. Kings went to 5 games, and Oilers beat them by a score of 4-3. I thought that series would have gone a little bit longer. They met for the third straight year in the first round, and this time, Oilers finish earlier than the other 2 meetings.
Yeah, so they win in 7, and then they win in 6, and now they win in 5. So if they meet again next year, we're going to see a 4-game sweep, right, Harp?
100%. There's a pattern there.
So I think where LA really went wrong was the Dubois trade in the summer. That was a franchise-altering trade. Winnipeg was better for it. LA was worse for it. Dubois was nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, in this series, LA was one of the best defensive teams in the regular season. They had one of the best penalty kills. If I'm not mistaken, they had the best penalty kill. And the Oilers just had their way with them. LA could not defend. Edmonton just scorched LA in this whole series. There was that one game that Edmonton won. I believe it was game 4. They won 1-0, but that game-winning goal was still the power play goal. The Kings could not kill a penalty. That's scary for Vancouver. They're going to have to play this Oilers' formidable power play in that second round. But for LA, I mean, I thought they were a better team last year. I mean, they were deeper. This year, it just felt like just Byfield, Kempe, Kopitar, that line was having to do too much heavy lifting. They did get some contributions from guys lower in the lineup, like Trevor Moore and whatnot. But even Drew Doughty was saying, like, hey, I thought we put up a better fight against these guys last year. That's bad. If you're a historic player like Drew Doughty, who's going to have his jersey retired one day and he's going to be a Hall of Famer, is saying that, like, I don't know. That's a tough look. And for LA, this is the third straight year they've used a different goaltender. John Quick was unbelievable in 2022. He single-handedly almost won them the series. He only gave up 2 goals in Game 7. The problem is the Kings didn't score any. Last year, Jonas Korpisalo, I'm just going to flat out say it, terrible. Stuart Skinner wasn't that good in that series, but Korpisalo was even worse somehow than Skinner. And this year, Talbot, tough Game 1. He comes back, battles Games 2, but I mean, how much confidence did they have in Talbot and David Riddick? Riddick gave him a chance, but, you know, when you look back and you have that stud goaltender back there, it changes the way you play. Like in Boston with either Swayman or Allmark, it changes the way you play. When you got like Riddick, who's a bit of a journeyman, you know, he has a history of turning it on, right? They call him Big Save Dave, but there's a difference. You know, this team played in front of John Quick for over a decade, and Quick was one of the best goaltenders of his generation, right? Most wins of all time among U.S.-born goalies. That changes things. It changes the way you play. So for LA, that's tough. I genuinely thought it was going to be a longer series, like you thought, Harp. That's disappointing. Like I thought last year they could have beaten Edmonton. They had the wonderful chance. Edmonton was blowing leads all over the place. They were in trouble, but they just couldn't get a save. And this year, unfortunately, they were just never in this series at all. Edmonton just had their way with them.
Yeah, I agree. Goaltending was a big thing. I mean, Riddick and Talbot, they're basically lifelong backups in this league. Maybe Talbot started one season at Edmonton, one in Calgary, but for the majority of his career, you know, he's what, 35, 36, he's been a backup. Riddick, majority of his career, backup. So at no point were these guys legitimate starters. So on any other team, they'd probably be backup. So going into that series, even Skinner, he hasn't dominated too long. He has been a starter for 2 seasons, but Skinner had the edge going into the series.
And he played really well. Like, I'll give Stuart Skinner a lot of credit. He's a great goaltender. Last year, I just think he just ran out of gas, right? It's his first kind of full season in the NHL. The playoffs are a completely different animal, especially when you're playing on a Canadian team. It's nothing like you've ever experienced before, and he's from Edmonton. So that's just an absurd amount of pressure on Stuart Skinner. He just ran out of gas last year. And this year, tough start to the season, but they made changes. Obviously, they let go of Jay Woodcroft, Dave Manson. They brought in Paul Coffey and Chris Knobloch. And chatting with the goaltending guru, that is Kevin Woodley, just talking about basically goaltending. Skinner is not a guy who's great off the rush. He's not a great skating goaltender, but when he's set and square, there's very few guys better than him. He's a big guy, 6'4", fills up a lot of the net, very fundamentally sound, very technically sound, but he falls in trouble when teams are coming in off the rush and passing early. He has a hard time covering that space. He uses a narrow butterfly to compensate for that. Because of that, there's a delay in the game. Now, he's a lot better this year than he was last year, but I'll give Skinner a lot of credit for the way he played. He gets a shutout in the series. Last year, we all remember his stick breaking in Game 6 on the tying goal with Deneau scored. For a lot of guys, that would break them, but I'll give Skinner credit. He battled, and for Edmonton, I would personally think they have the goaltending advantage heading into series number 2 against Vancouver.
Special teams was huge too. They just crushed the Kings on the power play. That last game, Game 5, only one counted as a power play goal, but there was one goal just 3 seconds after Doughty's penalty expired. Then there was another one 4 seconds after Dubois' penalty expired. So huge goals, right? It's basically you're still on the power play. The guy gets out of the box and he's not even into the blue line for his defensive zone coverage. So yeah, that was Wednesday night. They wrapped it up. They asked Leon Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins post-game. They're like, yeah, now that you have advanced into the conference semifinals, will you guys be paying attention to this game number 6 between the Canucks and Nashville, and they chuckled and laughed. They're like, we'd be lying if we said we're not going to watch it. So that game went down on a Friday night. Game 6 in Nashville. Canucks had a chance to close them out at home on game 5. Lose that one. This one's a scoreless game with a $1:30 left, and you can take it away from here, Mantar.
Yeah, it was a great game. And Kevin Bieksa talked about on the Hockey Night panel how back in 2011 it was basically the exact same series as what we just saw, and they really regretted not closing out a Nashville in Game 5. It's not a short travel, right, between Vancouver and Nashville, and it does take its toll on you. Now, that was in the second round for those guys. It's the first round for these guys, but for the guys battling injuries and stuff, they would have really have hoped to close it out in 5. But yeah, great game in game number 6. Tight checking. UC Saros played incredible. Pius Suter with tons of opportunities. He finally gets one, and that was just a great cross crease play. I forget who the winger was that took the puck, but Suter goes to the front of the net. He beats, I think, 2 Nashville defenders, gets to the spot, gets to the open ice first. Saros, again, he played unbelievable. He had no chance on that goal. That was just such a quick bang pass. And Saros is a smaller guy too. Let's not forget he is listed at 6 foot, but he's probably not. So if he's extending to go left to right, that's less space he takes up than a guy like Stuart Skinner, who's 6'4", or another guy like Andrei Vasilevsky, 6'6". These guys, when they stretch out, they have more length. They might be able to make that save. But minute 30 left, Canucks get the game-winning goal, and then some drama. 30 seconds left. Lindholm gets a phantom cross-checking penalty, terrible penalty call. That's one of the biggest penalty killers, big face-off man. And of course, that face-off is on the right side, where that's Lindholm's strong side, and he's the only right-handed centerman the Canucks have. So they have to put lefties out there to take that draw on their weak side. And full marks. They survived. The Predators' biggest downfall by far was how horrible they were on the power play. They couldn't generate anything. They get a few chances right at the end. Tyler Myers lays out, puts his body on the line, potentially his future on the line.
I thought you were going to say something else. He put something else on the line. But yeah.
Well, it was along the same lines, right? You
Yeah.
put the future on the line, you can connect the dots and figure out where I'm going with that. But he makes the biggest block of his career, you could say, and the Canucks close it out. Gutsy win. A very low-scoring series. Pretty much all of them one-goal games, and the ones that weren't were basically ones with empty netters in them. Huge credit to Artur Shilovs. That's a lot of pressure on this guy. He wasn't even the starting goalie in Abbotsford at times this year. You know what I mean? It's full marks to him for stepping in. And he gets the shutout in game number 6, sends his team to the second round.
Yeah, and then there was a lot of Pangade and Partu at
Pangade the
72. But that's an episode edition for itself.
A episode ni documentary.
Documentary. Yeah. Yeah, Shilov's I wonder when he told the media, hey guys, the pronunciation is actually Shilovs. Because everyone since he got drafted in 2019 is saying Silovs, right? But that's a preference thing, and I still remember, I think he's a 5th or 6th round pick. He was at that
trade.
Sorry?
The draft pick they used to draft him came on a trade.
That's right. And so he gets picked by the Canucks, and he's there. He's got a bow tie. He's got one friend. I think it might have been his girlfriend. And, we're just doing a post-draft just a presser, right? They had all these little booths set up. Draft was in Vancouver, and we asked, we're like, hey, do you have any family here? He's like, no, I didn't expect to get drafted today. And I was like, wow. I was like, that is cool, right? And fast forward, he's starting goaltender going into round 2. So, let's preview that series. I think I was just looking at Twitter and the English side and all the media on the U.S. broadcasts and all the big shots there. 90% are picking the Oilers. And you know what? They are the favorite. Canucks are the underdog, even though, they finished higher and they're getting home advantage. Ryan Clark, our buddy, he picked the Canucks in 7.
Mr. Ryan Clark,
yeah,
the man, the myth, the legend.
That's right. I don't remember anyone else who else picked the Canucks.
Nobody
but this
else
is like
picked Vancouver.
this is mainstream, right? And same thing happened for Toronto. Like everyone picked Toronto this time. I myself picked 7, but let's get back to this series. What do you expect? I know you mentioned one thing. You're expecting a short series.
Yeah, you clown on me all you want. It's fine. I picked Edmonton in 4. That's just my honest feeling. Uh, at the end of the day, predictions are meaningless. We all know this. Hockey's the one sport you cannot predict. It's not a lock like the NBA or the NFL. You cannot predict hockey. Unless it's the Rangers and Capitals. We all knew the Capitals were going to get smashed. But and they did. But with this series, only reason I think it's going to be a short series, I think Artur Shelovs is a wonderful goaltender. He plays technically essentially the same style as Thatcher Demko. They're both Ian Clark products, drafted, developed by the Canucks, Ian Clark's system. Both active guys in the RVH, the double seals, post play is great. Very athletic goaltenders. Shelovs, this is going to be his first test of his NHL career. Bless the Preds. They are not the Oilers' offense. The Preds have some good veterans. Philip Forsberg's a terrific player, but he's not a 50-goal guy. He's not a 60-goal guy. He's not a 150-point guy, right? Forsberg's a great player. The Oilers are going to be a formidable opponent for Shelovs. It's his first time, right? There's no offense like that at the AHL level. You know, Shelov's got a bronze medal at the IIHF World Championships, which is great. Plenty of good NHL players play in that tournament. But I just think this is where we're going to see the experience really, or inexperience really show up. Now, Shelov's played great. He was put in an impossible situation. He pulled through. Now he's going to be game planned against. Oilers have video on this guy. They know he's given up some goals, high blocker. The Oilers move the puck really quick. They have an unbelievable power play, especially in the playoffs. And the scariest thing is as good as Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are in the regular season, they become different in the playoffs every year. You know, I get guilty of being like, man, Leon Draisaitl is the most overrated player in the NHL. I don't even think he's top 5. That's how I always feel every single year. And then the playoffs come around, and I'm like, man, I think Leon Draisaitl might be the second best guy in the NHL. Every single season, every single time he gets to the playoffs, he steps it up and he torches opponents. Like last year, he was going to set the goal record. Like I forget what, I think he had like 15 goals in like game 2 of the second round. Like at that point, I don't remember, but it was a lot of goals. But with Edmonton, I just think if Vancouver had Thatcher Demko, it's a different series. I'm not saying Shelovs is a bad goaltender. He's a terrific goaltender. But inexperience is 100% a factor. Look at Stuart Skinner last year, his first pro season, and his play, frankly, sunk the Oilers season. I thought they had a chance of beating Vegas. Skinner let in too many bad goals. He's been great this year. I think Shelovs is in a similar position to what Skinner was last year. It's going to be a tough test. And if Shelovs gets pulled and DeSmith comes in, DeSmith had some regular season success, right? He had 2 wins against the Oilers in the regular season. But remember, the 2 wins he had was 1, game 2 of the regular season, when the Oilers couldn't do anything. And then basically the final game of the regular season with no Connor McDavid, and the Oilers had virtually nothing to play for. So it's going to be a big test for the Canucks. I just think defensively, as good as they've been, it's going, like, Edmonton dismantled LA. And you can make the argument LA was probably a better defensive team than Vancouver. So it's going to be a tough test. That's just my honest feeling. I think the Oilers are going to sweep them. But anything can happen in these playoffs. And if the Vancouver Canucks win this series, good for them. Like, I'm not going to say I won't be surprised. I would be a little bit surprised, but it would be a wonderful series if they do get the victory. But it's going to be tough for these guys. If Elias Pettersson plays the way he did against Nashville, I have a hard time seeing them getting success against this Oilers team. I think they've gotten way better defensively than in the past. But Vancouver struggled to score more than 2 goals against the Predators. And the Preds, you know, they struggled to score 2 goals against the Canucks. The Oilers are gonna have no problem scoring goals in this series. It's gonna be if Vancouver can keep up with them offensively. And I wasn't very optimistic about that, considering the way they were in the first round. They got goals from Brock Besser. They got offense from JT Miller. Pettersson's going to have to do something if they have a hope of winning the series.
Yeah, I was just going to get to Pettersson, and you mentioned him. I do agree with you that that's a big reason why Edmonton is a bigger favorite. Like say Demko was in it, it'd be probably closer matched. If Pedersen didn't fall off the face of the planet, it'd be different too. You could cancel some of these superstars out. I'm not saying that Draisaitl and McDavid are parallel to Miller and Pedersen. You got to give obviously the duo in Edmonton the edge, but if they're all going, if Pedersen was firing in all cylinders, like say Miller and Hughes and all these guys, it would be closely matched. You could say that their Canucks top five versus the Oilers top five would be even, right? Because they don't have a Quinn Hughes at the back, they don't have a Thatcher Demko in net. It would be evenly matched. But I think goaltending is going to be huge this series. I don't think Canucks are going to be putting up more goals than Edmonton in a 6-5 game. They're going to have Sheilov steal at least 2 games to even be in this series.
Yeah.
Like I just like Shedayam Jetani Praptkasa against Edmonton. That's my feeling.
Yeah. And I think Elias Lindholm is going to be a factor. In the last game in the regular season, I forget if it was the last game or if it was the second last game that these two teams played, but Lindholm was a beast. He shut down Draisaitl the whole game. He played incredibly well. I believe he got an empty net goal in that game, if I'm not mistaken. But if Pedersen isn't playing, Lindholm's going to be a huge factor in this series. But even then, I have a tough time imagining if it's going to be enough. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a very entertaining series, and it's going to be even more entertaining seeing the discourse and banter from the opponents, from the team's fan bases. Because Vancouver had all the smoke because they swept the Oilers in the season series. They won 4 out of 4 and let the Oilers fans know. But these are two very passionate fan bases, and you could probably use some other words, some other adjectives as well. But that's going to be very fun to watch the discourse online.
Yeah, they've only played each other twice in the playoffs, 92 and 86. And I remember 92, and I know you two don't. So, and I just read a Sportsnet stat that it said in the past 30 years, there's only been 5 head-to-head Canadian teams play each other second round and beyond. And I was blown away. I was like, it's only happened 5 times.
Because there's been a few recently. You know what I mean? Like Edmonton, Calgary a few years ago.
That's right.
And then I want to say 2015, there was a second round matchup.
That's right. That was a Calgary, Vancouver.
That was first round, but it was after that.
That's right.
I forget which series it was, but there was one in 2015.
Who would that be?
So I know Calgary, Vancouver made it that year. Ottawa made it. Montreal made it.
Montreal, Winnipeg is one because Montreal swept Winnipeg in round 2. Remember the Canadian division?
That's right. Yeah, 2021. I want to say Montreal, Ottawa is probably what it was in 2015.
I think you're right. I don't have it in front of me. I'm just guessing now, but it's only been 5.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's cool. We know that there's gonna be at least one Canadian team, or there is gonna be one Canadian team in the Western Conference Final. So that's always good. So Jaggi, what do you got for the series? What are you predicting? We need your prediction.
ਜੀ ਹੁਣ ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਸੱਚ ਕਹਾਂ ਤਾਂ prediction ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਤੇ I grew up a Canucks fan, right? Like I'm not going to be afraid to say it. I grew up a Canucks fan, right? But just growing up and working through the media for the short time that I have, I learned that, the truth is hard sometimes. It's a hard pill to swallow. The ਇਸ ਵਿੱਚ Edmonton, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖੋ, they have 2 of the best players in the world in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. That offense, it may not, like the depth, okay, they have had some issues, but that offense comes as a firepower punch. Mantar and I were talking about this yesterday as well in studio. The Canucks, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ depth ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, but do they have the continuity that the Edmonton Oilers have had all season long? ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ 4 ਵਾਰੀ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਹੋਇਆ, but Edmonton is not that same team that Vancouver faced the first 3 times in the season. Connor McDavid ਨੂੰ I think Mark Spector ਨੇ ਸਵਾਲ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਸੀ ਕਿ, they blew you guys out in the first game of the season. McDavid immediately shut it down. That was so long ago. And the Oilers, we've seen how hot they've gotten towards the latter part of the season. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਟੀਮਾਂ ਵਿਚਕਾਰ ਚੌਥਾ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਨਰ ਮੈਕਡੇਵਿਡ ਨੇ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਆ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ I'm expecting the Edmonton Oilers to come out hot offensively. It'll be up to the Vancouver Canucks defensively how they respond. Mantar, I agree with your pick. It may be Oilers in 4. I do see the Canucks stealing a game or two, so if I were to have one final pick, I'd say it's Oilers in 6.
That's my
There
pick
you
too.
have it.
And that's my pick because we had to send it to you and you're going to push it out on our Hockey Night social media there. And Mantad, which ones did you get right for round 1 there? Your predictions?
I went, I'm not Gurpreet. Gurpreet went 8 for 8, which is unbelievable. That guy, ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਣਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਾ ਅਗਲੀ ਲਾਟਰੋ ਮੈਕਸ ਉਹਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿੱਤਣ ਵਾਲੀ ਟਿਕਟ ਹੈ ਉਹਦਾ ਨੰਬਰ ਕੀ ਆ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛੂਗਾ because that man knows everything. He went 8 for 8, which is absurd.
He's defending champion from last year's predictions too.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he went 7 for 8 last year in the first round too.
Yeah,
which is wild, and I completely flunked it last year. I was so confident in my picks last year, and I went 3 for 8 in the first round. It's just horrible. Berda Gark, awful. But this year I went 6 for 8. The 2 series I got wrong was Toronto and Tampa. I'll explain myself. I thought Toronto, this would be the year they finally get over the hump. They didn't. But Tampa, the only reason I picked them is the last 2 times there's been the Battle of Florida. I've picked Florida both times. And one of those years, I believe 2021, they won the division. And they won the President's Trophy. And they added Claude Giroux, Ben Sherrod at the trade deadline. I was like, how the heck is Tampa going to beat this team? And guess what? Tampa swept Florida that year. And so I just thought this year, I was like, okay, I'm over 2. I've picked Florida twice. I'll pick Tampa. And Tampa lost. It wasn't even a close series. So I'll take the L there. I think Florida is going to smash Boston in the second round. I picked Florida in 5 over the Bruins. I just think the way they're built, that's a playoff team. Like that's a team that's going to run you through the end boards. Terrific goaltending, good enough defense, an absolutely snarling forecheck, and depth throughout their lineup. All 4 lines can score.
ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਹਰ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਪੰਦੇਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ
So I just got my hands on a stat here. According to ESPN, Vegas is just the 3rd team in the last 15 years to be the defending Stanley Cup champions to be eliminated after taking a 2-0 series lead. ਇਹ ਪਿਛਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ 2019 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ ਕੈਪੀਟਲਸ ਨੇ ਹਾਰ ਖਾਧੀ ਸੀ ਕੈਰੋਲਾਈਨਾ ਹਰਿਕੇਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਅਤੇ 2009 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਡਿਟਰੋਇਟ ਰੈਡ ਵਿੰਗਸ ਨੇ ਹਾਰ ਖਾਧੀ ਸੀ ਸਟੈਨਲੀ ਕੱਪ ਫਾਈਨਲਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਟਸਬਰਗ Penguins ਦੇ ਹੱਥੀਂ and the one before that funny enough 10 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦਾ ਫਰਕ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਪਿਛਲੇ 3 ਵਾਰੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ 1999 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਿਟਰੋਇਟ ਰੈਡ ਵਿੰਗਸ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਹਾਰ ਖਾਧੀ ਸੀ ਕੋਲੋਰਾਡੋ ਐਵਲੈਂਚ ਦੇ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ in the playoffs.
There you go. That might have been the best series in the first round in my opinion. The pace, these guys are beating the crap out of each other. Like just the pace that these guys are playing at. Like okay, I'm not going to say there's any easy opponents for the Colorado Avalanche, but Colorado smashed the Jets, and they've had this huge layoff. They're well rested, and the team that they're going to play, the Dallas Stars, are battle tested. This is going to be a war of attrition. Honestly, if the first round wasn't dramatic enough, I think the Stars Avalanche series is going to be just an absolute war out there. But a great first round series. The Golden Knights, the defending Stanley Cup champions, are out. 99% of hockey Twitter is celebrating. It was a crazy series. Vegas wins the first 2 games on the road. I'm thinking, oh my God, Dallas is in trouble. But the reality is, they weren't bad in those first 2 games. Both of those games were 1-goal losses. I was very surprised they didn't go to Adin Hill sooner. But nonetheless, I give Bruce Cassidy credit to going to Adin Hill. He won you the Stanley Cup last year, and he was not the reason that your team got bounced in the first round. I give credit to Jake Ottinger. I was very hard on Jake Ottinger. I have an extremely high standard for goaltenders. I'm obviously a goaltender myself. Coach, I'm involved in the community. With goaltenders, Jake Ottinger, everyone remembered his voodoo performance. Unbelievable in 2022 against the Calgary Flames. Hasn't been the same goaltender since. Everyone can see that. It's plain to see. But I give him credit. Last year, he was the reason the Stars flunked in the conference finals. They should have been a Stanley Cup finalist last year. He was the reason they didn't get there. This year, a very bad season, but he turns it on right at the end. Last month, he catches on fire, starts playing like that 2022 version of himself again, and he was excellent in that first round. Jake Ottinger was incredible. I give him full credit. Dallas is not a great defensive team. You know, they're not going to shut guys out, but grading Chris Tanev was great. He's fit in perfectly. Their D-zone structure is better. They're getting saves from Ottinger and timely saves from Ottinger. And it's the deepest team in the NHL. I think Colorado has more punch. I think the Oilers have more punch, but the Dallas Stars have 4 lines they can roll. All 4 lines can score. They're built like the Florida Panthers, who I just mentioned. All 4 lines can score. But a terrific first-round series. If you're the Golden Knights, I mean, yeah, this one stings. You win the first 2 on the road, and then you lose 4 out of the next 5. But this series, every single game was pretty much a 1-goal game. Fantastic series, back and forth, tons of drama. Mark Stone back for game number 1. Everyone's up in arms. It's the same story all over again. Stone scores the series' first goal, barely 2 minutes into the game, in a game 1. Everyone's up in arms. But Dallas, they recovered. They didn't fold. And great news is RoboCop has been playing great. Jason Robertson, he's getting goals. Last year, I know I just pinned the blame on Ottinger, but Robertson was bad as well last year. He didn't do much. This year, he's been fantastic. There are other areas of concern for the Stars. Rope hints a little bit of a down series. Joe Pavelski, let's face it, father time is catching up. Pavelski, a fantastic athlete, a terrific player for a very long time. He's been a bit of a shell of himself lately, which is understandable. Obviously, he's up there in age. You know, you could be the best athlete in the world. Father time was undefeated. But
he couldn't score 4 goals in he couldn't score 4 goals in a game this year.
Unless Father Time's undefeated unless you're LeBron.
Unless you're LeBron or Tom Brady. But yeah, a fantastic series win for the Dallas Stars, and it does not get any easier. You've beat the Golden Knights, a pretty stacked Golden Knights roster, the defending Cup champs in round 1. And now you play the Colorado Avalanche, who absolutely annihilated the goaltender that's going to win the Vezina. They put up 5 goals every single game on Connor Hellebuck, and Hellebuck himself even said he played the best hockey of his life, and he couldn't do a thing against the Avalanche. So this is going to be a crazy series. My personal pick is Dallas in 7. I don't cheer for teams. I cheer for players. I just want Pavelski to get his cup. That's my personal bias. But I think it's going to be a long series and lots of drama. Yoel Kiviranta, last time these two teams met, 2020, he had the infamous Game 7 hat trick to send the Stars to the 3rd round where they beat the Vegas Golden Knights, ultimately losing to Tampa in the Stanley Cup final. But Kiviranta is now a member of the Colorado Avalanche, facing his former team, the same team that vanquished his current team.
Mantar, with the current way that, you know, this series, you talked about the second round with how Colorado and Dallas, they're going to go back and forth now. Like, we know that first round, it was a bloodbath with Dallas and Vegas. And heading into that series, that was what most people expected, that these two teams are going to go back and forth. Now, do you feel like if Dallas is taken to another 7-game series, and let's say they hypothetically win, would that affect, their performance in the Western Conference Final against either Edmonton or Vancouver?
Without a doubt, it has to. Here's the thing with things like this. You know, when you win a series quick and you have a long layoff, sometimes the tendency is you start off slow in the next series, right? But as the series goes on, that's when that difference starts to pay off. You know, you're less sore, you're less fatigued later in the series. So for Dallas, you know, they haven't had any rest. It's going to be a short turnaround, and they play against a team that punched the Winnipeg Jets right across the face. It's going to be tough. But the advantage for them is, as I mentioned, they're 4-line team. You know, they're not relying on one or 2 lines, because in the playoffs, your stars are going to get targeted. Ask Quinn Hughes how he feels after that Nashville series. He got hit every single time he had the puck. He was a warrior out there. And give Quinn Hughes credit, never complained. He knows this is just playoff hockey. For the Dallas Stars, all four
Hold on.
of their
Quentin, तेरे सट तो नहीं लगी Nashville विद cricket?
and so is that how Rick Tocchet asks Quinn Hughes?
It's probably Mikey O. He's more soft spoken.
Mikey, yeah. But going back to Dallas, it's just when you have four lines absorbing those hits, it's more spread out, obviously, right? Now, Stars are also physical, right? Guys like Radek Foxau, who scored a big goal in Game 7, first game back after a while. Jamie Benn, another physical guy. You very rarely see Braden McNabb get lit up. It's usually McNabb destroying guys, but Ben lit him right up in Game 5, I believe. Or was Game 6. It was in Vegas, that game. But if the Dallas Stars win this 1-7, they're going to be banged up. And whoever they play in the conference finals, it's going to be tough. But here's the thing. The advantage to that is you're coming off this brutal series. You're already in that mentality. You know, if you're a team that's Charta de Vecchia, you don't want days off. You want to play that next day. You want to play and the day after that and the next day. You're already in that mentality of being warriors on the ice, right? You're absorbing checks. Now, obviously, when you've got aches and bruises, days off obviously help. But when you're jacked up on adrenaline, like these guys are on the ice, a lot of that pain goes away until they obviously have to go sit in the intermission, right? But no doubt, this is going to be a team that if they win, they're going to be very banged up. But hey, if Colorado wins the series, they're going to be banged up too. But the scary thing about Colorado is they're healthy. Last year against Seattle, a very depleted Colorado Avalanche team, and Seattle surprised them. They got performances from a lot of guys that normally aren't known as playoff guys. Guys like Philip Grubauer, Oliver Bjorkstrand. But this year, Colorado's rolling. They're top 6. And guys like Zach Parise. I mean, this guy's found the fountain of youth. He was, a lot of people were kind of laughing like, oh my God, they got Zach Parise on the top line. What are they doing? But Parise's been fantastic for the Avalanche. Val Nichushkin, like what a playoff guy. I talked about Draisaitl McDavid finding an extra, step. Nichushkin's that guy. He finds an extra 2 steps in the playoffs. And McKinnon, I mean, these guys skate downhill. They come at you so fast. Their defense is mobile. Makar, in my opinion, the best defenseman in the league. If I were to build a team, the first guy I pick wouldn't be Connor McDavid. I'd actually be Cale Makar. That's my personal opinion. If you pick Connor McDavid, that's totally fine. Mobile defense. The big question for Colorado is goaltending. Now, Georgiev, let's face it, couldn't stop a beach ball in Game 1. They scored 6 goals and lost on Connor Hellebuyck. But he turned it around. He was great the rest of the series. Give full credit to Georgiev for the way he played. Winnipeg is not an offensive team like the Dallas Stars are. This Dallas Stars team can score all 4 lines. So Georgiev is going to have to stand on his head in this series for Colorado. Colorado's going to score. No doubt about it. Will they score 6 every single game like they did against Winnipeg? Probably not. I think this series goes a distance. I think Dallas is a team that bends but doesn't break. That was the ultimate downfall for Winnipeg, is when things started going bad, they just folded right over. They would score and give up a goal basically a minute later. I think Dallas, coming off such a high against a team like Vegas, they're already in that mode. And so they're ready to play a team like Colorado. So it's going to be a very, very fascinating series to watch.
Do you find that this is the Western Conference final? Like, do you think whoever gets through, they pretty much, not say cakewalk, but they can take out Edmonton or Vancouver with ease?
I maybe not with ease, but it'll be easier than having to play Vegas or in this case Colorado Dallas, right? Yeah, you could say it's the conference final. Like last year, you could have said Edmonton Vegas was the conference final. Like that was a wonderful series, right? Obviously, it wasn't. Vegas ended up winning the Stanley Cup that year. It pretty much, it really is the conference final. And this is just the reality of the way the playoff format is. But at the end of the day, if you want to win the Stanley Cup, as Ric Flair said, to be the man, you gotta beat the man.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to say the way the bracket's set up or the way the divisions are, 2 playing 3 and wild card, whatnot. This is a historically a rivalry in the playoffs. We go back. I just pulled it up here. Mantar, you probably remember all this off by heart, but I have to Google it. You already mentioned 2022. 2004, 2006, both seasons, Avs beat the Stars in Game 5 of the first round. 1999 and 2000, both seasons, Stars defeated Colorado in Game 7 of the Western Conference Final. So that's a time when, Colorado was not in the same division as Dallas, right? And, 1 through 8, when they do the reseeding, like this year, for instance, the Eastern Conference, if you seeded them 1 to 8, one playing 8, two playing 7, blah, 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 it would have been the same seeds matching up to each other. So it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but it is kind of weird. You'd expect these two teams to meet in the Western Conference Final, but hey, it is what it is. We'll take it. I think it's a great matchup to see in the second round.
Yeah,
So
high flying series.
Yeah, no, I'll be watching these two. Especially, I picked the Avs in 6, but the more I think about it, I think it might be Dallas in 7. I think Dallas just has more depth.
It can go either way. That's the thing. Like, here's the thing. It's like Carolina, New York. New York's got more punch. Carolina's got more depth. I think that series goes 7. Colorado, no doubt, has the better players, but Dallas has more good players, right? Like the drop off isn't as significant for line to line than it is with Colorado.
It's a good way of putting it. So for the other series, I picked Carolina in 6, and Florida, I'm picking them to sweep Boston.
Yeah, I could see it happen. Like, I picked Florida in 5, and I picked the Canes in 7. So we're pretty much the same in that sense. One game off on both of our predictions, but the teams are the same. Hurricanes play playoff hockey. The difference with the Rangers this year is Peter Laviolette's a really good coach. He's an intense coach. So, they sweep the Capitals, all is well, but Laviolette's telling them he's having intense practices. He's basically barking at these guys. They're simulating Carolina's man-to-man coverage in the D zone, and it's intense. He's telling these guys, hey, this is not a cakewalk. Last year, Rangers out in the first round, and I picked them to go to the Stanley Cup final. They remember that. They get to the first round, albeit against a much easier opponent. And there's no, that's just how it is. But yeah, they win game 1, a close one, 4-3. The way I look at this series, goaltending wise, it's pretty similar. I'd give the edge to the Rangers. I think Shesterkin's top 3 goaltender in the NHL. But the way Anderson has been playing, he's pretty much been playing at Shesterkin's level. So goaltending wise, it's pretty similar. I give a slight edge to New York. Defensively, Hurricanes are a better team. Offensively, the Rangers have more punch. You give me Panarin, you give me Kreider, you give me Zibanejad, I'll take that over a lot of teams. Panarin is a formidable player. That guy's a gamer. He shows up to play. Last year, he was a no-show, sure. But this year, he's been fantastic. He's not going to win the Hart, and that's not his fault because the Hart Trophy this year is unbelievable, the race. But he's going to get votes. I think the Hurricanes play better team defense. I think defensively, obviously their defensemen are better suited at defense. But the Rangers, Adam Fox, he's a top 3 defenseman in the NHL. They got him. They got Panarin. They got Shesterkin. These are superstars at each position. The Hurricanes don't have a superstar. They have Brent Burns, who is ageless, with Jacob Slavin. That's probably one of the best deep pairings in the league. I'd say Taves and Makar is the best deep pairing, but Slavin and Burns is not far behind. Solid deep pairing. We'll see with Brett Pesce, but that second pairing of Pesce and Brady Shea, great deep pairing. With the New York Rangers, there's a pretty big drop off from pair to pair. Adam Fox, one of the best defensemen in the NHL, he's a stud. After that, sure, K'Andre Miller, good defenseman. Jacob Trouba, good defenseman, but that's a huge drop off. And so I think for the Hurricanes, the key is when those guys are on the ice, the stars are on the ice, if it's 60-40 hockey in the favor of the Rangers, you take that. Your goal should be the other minutes. You have to be 70-30 against the Rangers. You got to feast on those minutes. The Rangers are not as deep of a team as the Hurricanes are. Jake Gensel, big X factor for the Hurricanes. He's a wonderful trade deadline acquisition. Played great in that first round series. Obviously, like I mentioned, they lost today, but I think that series goes 7.
Now, Mantar, you mentioned, how Carolina is accustomed to playing playoff hockey, and we know there's quite the difference between playoff hockey and regular season hockey. I can't help but remember the last time where a team that was so dominant in the regular season actually made a deep playoff push. I was talking to you, Mantar, about this yesterday as well, off the top of my head. I think the last team I remember was the 2012-13 Chicago Blackhawks, who dominated in the regular season, went on to win the Stanley Cup. But we've seen the examples of how those dominant history making regular season teams have gone on to crumble in the playoffs. Prime example, the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning. This is a team that looked absolutely unstoppable in the regular season. They all go on and get swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Last year, 65 win Boston Bruins. They go on, they look unstoppable as well. They make history, most wins in a regular season in NHL history. Florida takes care of them with ease. And despite them being down 3-1, Florida, when they made that comeback as well, it looked like they were confident in themselves. They knew that they were going to get this done. Whether it be Florida just stepping up in the heat of the moment or just going on an absolute mystery run that they did to the Stanley Cup Finals. So you see that with the Rangers right now, the Rangers and the Hurricanes. I know, everybody has their own predictions, but based off of this one game sample size, do you think it's going to be a similar case of, just the better team that plays playoff hockey grinding out the series win?
Yeah, I could see that, but I mean, the X factor too is luck, right? I mean, man, the Hurricanes, that might have been the closest 4-game sweep of all time last year in the conference final. And you can clown on Brendan Moore all you want. The reality is they got swept. And Brendan Moore was like, we didn't get swept. That wasn't a 4-game sweep. I get what he was trying to say. The facts and the matter of fact is you got swept. But that was an unbelievably close series. That series could have gone either way. It came down to luck. I don't think this series is going to be a sweep. It's just a matter of fact of, the Rangers won the President's Trophy. They were the best team in the regular season. They took care of the Capitals with ease. This is going to be a huge test for them. And I think it's just a good matchup. Like, I just don't know if there's a guy on the Hurricanes that can beat the Rangers. You know what I mean? Like, the Rangers have two guys I've already mentioned, Panarin and Fox, that can beat the Hurricanes. So for Carolina, this test is going to be, can you establish that forecheck? Can you be physical? Can you will your way through the series? Because the Rangers are a team that kind of gets toyed around with sometimes physically. Now, they also have guys that can get physical. Rempe's been an unbelievable addition for this team. He really changed this team's dynamic when he showed up. Rempe's been amazing for them. So that's a bit different with this Rangers team this year than previous years. But yeah, you're going to have to grind this one out. And I think whoever wins this series is going to seriously need some puck luck as well.
Mantar, I really want to thank you for sharing your opinions and your thoughts on round one and what's going to happen in round two. I'm really happy that the Canucks and Oilers are playing on Wednesday because we have a really big game Tuesday night. We're called the 60 Scholars. They inna rakhe Mantar ne because we're scholars and
That's
we're
right.
team 6 in the city of Delta in this co-ed league. And you're going to hate me for this, but I haven't brought it up since it happened. It was a blooper that happened in a penalty shot.
Okay.
And I didn't want to say it,
You're
but
going to
you know
go
what?
right there.
It's been 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it happens. It happens.
All right,
Right?
I'm going to defend myself. So
Okay.
the people that don't know, this is Harp's season debut. All right, he missed game 1. This is game 2. I'm amped up. I played great in game 1. I was looking to build off of that. All right, other team in this league, when you get a penalty, it's a penalty shot, right? So, anyways, someone trips some guy and their guy gets a penalty shot. I'm wired. I'm ready to go. I'm like, let's effing go. All right, I'm in my net. Guy gets the puck and I come charging out of my net. I'm gonna meet this guy, and what happens? I plant my left skate, and my skate doesn't stop. My skate just keeps going. I slip. I fall. I blow a tire. The guy's got the empty net. It's the first shot of the game, and in it goes. Womp, womp. Great start to the game. I was all amped up. I blow it on this penalty shot. I have no inside edge on my left skate, and it wasn't my fault. Okay, the whole game I had to play with no inside edge. If you're a goaltender that has played a game with no inside edge, you know how impossible that is. Next day, I go back to the hockey shop because I just got my skate sharpened that day. It's like, hey fellas, do you mind just having a look at the skate? Like, you guys normally do a really good job, but just please just tell me I'm not crazy. Just have a look. And the guy goes, holy smokes, you got no left edge on this thing. I was like, oh, okay. So I wasn't going crazy.
I should have brought out Steve Erickson to broadcast the game. We would have captured this moment on on the camera for history.
Would have been a heritage moment. Yeah,
Oh,
that was a rough game, and it happened a few times during the game where they'd have an odd man rush, and I just kept falling, just flopping around like a fish out of water. It was awful. But yeah, unfortunately, our team is winless. We're 0-4, and we've gotten spanked in pretty much every single game. It's been tough. It's been tough. But you know what?
I think we've competed. The 2 games that I played, we were in the games.
Well, Harp, you're a leading scorer. You're a goal per game.
That's not saying anything too good.
Hey man, you're leading
lack
the
of
team in
scoring.
goals.
Lack of scoring.
Your shooting percentage is off the charts.
So Jiggy, after game 1, I didn't even bring it up with him because I was so pissed. We lost, and I just went off in our dressing room. पिछले साल कुछ नहीं किया. It's the same core. 80% is the same.
No, you warned me. You were like, I'm gonna give it to these guys in the dressing room as we're getting off the ice.
No, I couldn't understand why they're taking 3-minute shifts. Like, it just come off quickly. Like, just everyone's just like kind of gliding out there. Like, Sario, you'll get the same amount of playing time dividing it like 1-minute shifts. And we only have 9 guys, right? And girls. It's co-ed, right? I wasn't going off on the girls. It was the older, out of shape guys. And we can't even cut this. This is all going to be public now. What are we doing? Anyways, because I guess I'm the fitter guy on the team, right? But the whole thing, my example was, hey, listen, I can take 3-minute shift too, but I'm going to be gassed at the end. I'm not going to be that productive, right? So what is the point of me being out there for 3 minutes? I went home and I was pissed, and I left the dressing room and I apologized to Mantar. I guess, sorry, yaar, mera mood kharab ho gaya. But then I came back the very next week and I'm like, you know what? मैं अपना attitude change करना, right? 1, I'm not going to get mad. It's co-ed, right? 2, if they take longer shifts, I'll just take a 5-minute shift. I don't know, आप ही पता लग जाओ.
देखो ना एक दिन एक wise man ने कहा सीगा, सब इको चीज बदलनी चाहिए. सारा कुछ.
We'll end it off that, and if anyone understood that, you know, great. If you didn't, hit us up and we can further explain what that meant. But Mantar, we're going to keep this going for the playoffs. Even if we can get you on once a week, it'd be greatly appreciated. Time pending, it's going to be a great playoffs. I can't wait for round 2. It's going to be nuts. We'll see. We'll see.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to calling the next game with you every Saturday. Hockey Night Punjabi.
Be there or be square. If you can't watch it at home, watch us online or the Sportsnet Plus app.
That's it.